Welcome to Reach and Reverie. Are y'all as excited as I am to see week 2 garden tour? Well, let's go take a look. Dodging some chickens on the way. Guys, we grew a lot this week. I can't wait to show you. They're digging for some earthworms. Yasha's trying to steal earthworms from them. All right, let's take a look at the garden. So we have a few new items this week that we decided to plant. But let's start right where we were last week, which was these morning glories. They're doing pretty good. I did plant right underneath of them a cucamelon from our greenhouse because I already planted 3 cucamelons a few weeks ago and they're just not growing as fast as I'd like them to. I think I planted those 3 a little early. So the 3 that I left in the greenhouse to mature a few weeks longer, they are growing like rockets. Look at this. These are easily a foot taller than the other 3 that I grew. So this one I'm hoping will grow all the way up this tree trunk and just make a beautiful melon wall. I do have this parsley I didn't talk about last week. This one is about 1.5 years old, and last year it grew, it flowered, it went to seed, and then it was pruned back by the chickens who got a hold of it. This one in its prime was about 2 to 3 feet wide and 2 feet tall. It did overwinter nicely. It was a beautiful green, but now that the hot weather's coming back out, it's starting to yellow, kind of die back a little bit, and it's also going to seed a second year. So what I think I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to save the seeds from it, and then we might dry the rest in the dehydrator, because once it goes to seed, the flavor does change a little bit and it's not as good. And then we might put something else in this pot afterwards, but for now, he lives another day. This is a garden space that we were talking about last week where I had 3 ground cherries, 3 tomatillos, and pretty much an empty bed with some newly planted corn. So I went through some of the ideas that were mentioned, and what we decided to go with is a little different than even what I had been thinking, but I'm really liking it. So in the corner we do have the corn, and I noticed today that we have a few corn sprouts, which makes me so happy. I also did plant a bolero marigold in the corner to add some color when it flowers. So I ended up putting my 3 tomatillos in the back right here, and then my 2 ground cherries that I decided to keep are right here and right here. I ended up giving away 1 ground cherry to a friend, and so that one's gonna go to a good home, or went to a good home. And then in between the ground cherries, I planted 3 more bolero marigolds, which I was actually really worried about. The 4 total marigolds, the 1, 2, 3, and then the one in that corner, they all grew up in the same solo cup, and they were very intertwined with their root system, so I did have to damage the roots just a little bit to get these out. And when I first planted these, I thought they died. They were just completely droopy, wilting, but you know, I watered them, gave them a few days, and they look like beautiful plants now. So don't give up too quick on your plants. They're more resilient than we give them credit for. So in the middle, in between my ground cherry marigold row and my tomatillo row, I planted my shallots. And they're green and really, really long, but they're not really supporting themselves very much. So I went ahead and gave them a little bit of support. We're gonna see how they do. They don't seem to like the warm weather so much, and we're only getting into the 70s and 80s at this time of year in April. So I am just going to watch them, and if they end up not making it, which I'm hopeful they will, but if they don't, I'm probably just going to plant more pollinators in this row, because I like giving these ground cherries, which are going to bush out really big, and the tomatillos, which are going to bush out really big, room to breathe, and so shallots offers them a lot of airflow. So I had about 2 by 3 feet of space to work with extra after planting the tomatillos and ground cherries, and that gave me room for 2 more plants in this garden bed. What I decided to go with was a black beauty zucchini and a dark green zucchini. So that's what I decided on, and they're actually doing really good. They've even put out a new leaf since being transplanted into this bed. They do have a little bit of sun damage and a little bit of sparrow bird damage, but I'm not too worried. I did go ahead and remove the bird net, and I'm gonna hope for the best with these guys, but it was time. I do want to show you on my tomatillos. You guys, wait to check this out. Right there is a flower bud. You see it? And that is going to be where a little tomatillo will grow if it gets pollinated. All 3 of these plants have little buds. I do think I'm going to prune off this first bloom, because I want these plants to have a chance to grow just a little bit bigger and get just a little bit more established before they start trying to put energy into growing fruit. So as excited as I am, this is my first garden, my first flowers to bloom, and I'm probably going to take them off just so that I can give these tomatillos their best chance at having a good yield and good production for me this year. But look at them. These are easily one of my favorite plants in the garden this year. They're doing just so well, thriving, growing big. Look at how thick these stems are. They are putting suckers off, but I think I'm just going to let it go for a while. I might prune 1 or 2 of them and see what does better, pruning or no pruning on these tomatillos. I know with tomatoes, you really want to prune heavily to get good production, but I don't know if tomatillos are any different. Let me know what y'all's experience is with that. So that's this garden bed. It looks a lot different than what we had planned, but I think I'm really happy with it. Can't wait for those marigolds to grow. And then over here, I had planted my 2 Blue Beauty tomatoes that I didn't quite have the space for in that first garden bed. So I put them here and here. And then in the middle, between them, I also planted a Cracker Jack marigold. It's gonna bring pollinators to the tomatoes. And these 2 tomatoes, I'm going to prune back to just 1 stalk probably for each of them. And they're gonna grow up and be tied to this trellis. And I'm going to prune the lower leaves so they'll have good airflow. And all that's gonna be close to the ground is the marigold. I did have to make an adjustment that I wasn't planning on, because I quickly realized when I planted these that the chickens could actually reach their heads through the 2x4 squares, they'd pushed on the 2x4 squares, pushed on the fence, got their heads through the lattice, and they were eating my tomatoes. Look at this. Those crazy chickens were able to start eating my tomatoes. And look, that's easily like what, 1.5 feet of space that the chickens were able to get through. Just ridiculous. I didn't think they were going to be able to do that. So what I ended up doing is on the back of the 2x4 squares, I just tied some chicken wire. And now my tomatoes can grow in peace. Grow big, little ones. They're looking really healthy. Let's see. And right here, I have my fennel, which is one of my other favorites in this garden. Fennel, it has a flavor of licorice. And these are growing really, really well. This one kind of needs a little bit more support, mostly in the heat of the day, but this one over here is just nice and strong. So that's my fennel. And I did give the fennel their own pot, because fennel has a tendency to compete with other plants in that I've heard that it puts stuff in the soil that makes it harder for the plants close to them to grow. And they should be planted about 1 foot apart, and I planted these about 7 inches apart. So we'll see how they do. It's my first time growing fennel, And I absolutely just love how feathery and beautifully green this is. I have my zinnia, which is looking really nice. I think I'm gonna plant 2 more zinnias in this pot. I had like 6 colors of zinnia, 6 different varieties, and I planted multiples in a few different pots, and this is the only zinnia that's germinated this year. So I think he needs a friend. I'm not sure which one this is. In this pot I had planted purple and pink and red zinnias, and only the one germinated. So we'll see what color he is. And I think I'm gonna plant 2 more here, and I'm probably gonna plant several more pots with zinnias. And then I have my sweet peas, which are looking really good. I gave them a little teepee to climb on, and they're already latching onto it and sticking out more little hookers. I am going to probably put a little trellis behind this, up this wall. That way my sweet peas can really grow. And I'm really excited. Sweet pea, it's not edible. It's actually toxic to eat, but it's really fragrant. So I'm just growing sweet peas because they make me happy. And that's reason enough, right? My art comb ancient watermelon is doing really good. I remember last week I was telling y'all that I didn't see much growth on this, but that I discovered a new leaf, which is this one. And now you can see that he's putting off several new leaves. He is getting bigger. He's gonna grow a little slow, but what's crazy is the videos I've seen where people have grown the art combs ancient watermelon, one plant can easily fill up this whole area if you let it. So I may end up moving this pot to another location if he gets big, but I'm really excited for art combs ancient watermelon. It's a really good heat tolerant variety. It's from Arizona, and this variety was actually found in a cave that's hundreds, possibly thousands of years old. Some little seeds in a clay pot, so it's a really cool artifact. And the skin of it's nice and dark green. Some of them come with a long neck on the end of the squash, so it really looks like a squash. But when you cut into it, it's that classic watermelon color, but the seeds are red. And we cannot wait to try this art combs ancient watermelon. It's a really cool variety. I do have one more seedling started in the greenhouse. I don't think I have room for it, so I'm probably gonna give him away to a friend. But it's so hard because it's such a cool little watermelon. I wish we had the space for it here. Then my kale is really doing really good. I'm gonna have to take this off soon so that they can really grow. It's just we have ravenous sparrows, guys. Our birds, these wild birds, will eat everything. My broccoli's growing really good, nice and strong, getting really tall. I'm probably gonna end up juicing these leaves or maybe sauteing them. We're using broccoli as a spinach substitute this year. We started it just a little bit too late to actually get a floret, a big head on it to have true broccoli, but it's good. We're still gonna make use of him, and in the meantime he's gonna look pretty in our garden for us. And then the rainbow chard is also doing very good. I was a little worried about the seedling in the back. He's a little knocked over, but he's growing. He's the one seedling that I had to transplant because I planted 5 originally, or I planted 5 holes with 2 seeds in each, and this one had 2 that germinated and everybody else just had 1, and then nothing germinated here. So I thinned him out and planted him here, and he's just growing a little slower having been transplanted. But chard grows really big, so we probably don't even have the space for 5 in this pot anyway. So as soon as he gets big enough, we'll probably eat him and then go from there. And then of course my my red romaine is doing really good. It's almost big enough for us to start taking a couple little leaves off of. We're gonna use these as what is it, baby greens, or it's just gonna be, we're gonna eat it while it's small. I multiple sowed this, so there's probably like 20 different romaine heads in here, and ideally you would put 1 romaine head in a pot and grow that 1 head of lettuce, but you wouldn't get a whole bunch of yield out of it. So what we're doing, instead of just harvesting a huge adult head, we're gonna grow a bunch of little pieces of romaine, and we're gonna pick off just the outer leaves as they grow, and it's gonna be a much more sustainable, longer lasting, higher yield way to grow romaine lettuce. We're not doing a big area, just one little, you know, probably what, 3.5, 4 gallon bucket, but that's because we don't really eat a lot of lettuce in our house. We're gonna try to get more into it, but baby steps, guys. And then I added a blue butterfly as moral support in my blue butterfly pea pot because I've had really poor success in growing the blue butterfly pea. I tried to plant about a dozen of them in the greenhouse and only one germinated, and then I planted some more outside and none germinated. So finally I direct sowed this one, and I've just been babying it, making sure it's always moist soil. And since I added this blue butterfly, I noticed I have one sprout that's about to come up, and I probably planted 4 in this pot, but I have one and I can't wait. So the blue butterfly pea is a really interesting variety. It's gonna vine, so I'm gonna grow it up this pole, and when it gets big enough I'm gonna let it grow on the fence when it's out of reach of the chickens. But the flowers are a really deep, bright blue color, and you can use it as a natural food coloring or a natural dye. And when you add the blue color to anything acidic like lemon juice, it turns pink. So it's a cool way to make natural pink lemonade. Here's the 3 cucamelons that I planted several weeks ago, and they had not been doing very much. They are a little stressed, a little sun damaged, but they're growing. They've probably grown about an inch just since yesterday afternoon, and I noticed that they are grabbing onto this cattle panel. So I'm just gonna let them do their thing. We're gonna be up to our ears in cucamelons, having 6 now. I had only planned on planting 3, and because these were growing so slowly and the ones in the greenhouse were doing so well, my original plan was to give away the 3 extras, but because these are doing so poorly, I went ahead and planted those 3 extras in various locations in the yard, hoping that we would get something. And now that these are taking off, we're gonna have 6 really nice cucamelon plants. And if I haven't told you yet about the cucamelon, or if you've never heard of the cucamelon, it's a cute, like, cucumber type plant, and its fruit is about the size of a grape, but the skin looks like a watermelon. And when you cut into it or bite into it, the flavor is similar to like a cucumber. They're also called Mexican sour gherkins. So it is a cucumber, but it's supposed to be with like a nice tart flavor. You can use them for pickling. You could eat them fresh in salads. So we're going to try them out this year, and I hope I love them because I'm probably going to have more than what we can eat, which is a good thing with such little garden space. So to my favorite garden bed so far this year. We have our 8 Blue Beauty tomatoes, which are establishing very nicely. They're not growing really tall yet, but we'll get there. We're going to be patient. What I'm worried, or what I'm more focused on with them right now, is establishing a solid root system. They don't have to worry about height yet, but what I'm liking is that their leaves are all very healthy. They're looking really nice. And I'm going to continue to watch them, and I'm going to pick off any leaves that look sickly because I know sickness can spread really easily with tomatoes. One of the best things you can do for a tomato is water on the bottom and try not to get the leaves wet, because anywhere where the leaves get splashed on or are able to just sit in moisture, they're going to get sick. So I've been watching, and I haven't had to pull a whole lot of leaves off, but that's something I'm looking for. I'm definitely bottom watering, and I'm happy that they hardened off really nicely because look at how beautiful and green those are. In the corner, I did end up coming back and planting one dwarf teddy bear sunflower just because I thought it would be nice to add some color to the garden. Nice bright sunflower. My 4 eggplant that we planted about a week and a half ago, they're also establishing pretty nicely. You can see that there's some sun stress on them, but they're getting bigger, getting nice big leaves. This is from a bird, I think. And they all have new growth, which is just amazing. So I have the 4 Listata Tigondia, and this eggplant, it's the one that is Has purple and white stripes. The skin is supposed to be really succulent and soft and not as bitter as some of the other varieties. Right in the middle here, this is not a weed, I planted some purple basil. And I can't wait for it to grow because I made a caprese salad the other day and I didn't have basil. It was just the tomato with balsamic and some cheese, and it really needed that basil. But it was good. I love tomatoes. I have my 5 jalapenos. The 2 right here are my black Hungarian, which is going to grow a purple jalapeno, and some of the leaves are purple and the flowers are going to be purple. It's a very purple plant. And then the 3 corners over here are my brown stuffing jalapeno, which I can't wait for because I am so ready to have some stuffed jalapeno poppers. These are all looking really healthy, growing nice and tall. These love the heat, and it's been very hot the past couple days, so they've grown quite a bit, and they're throwing off lots of new growth. You can see those pretty purple purple leaves. Purple veins versus the brown jalapeno solid green, which is also very pretty in its own right. So the jalapenos are very happy. We do have a little bit of bird damage, even with the bird netting. I'm telling you, these sparrows, never seen anything like it. Then I have my 4 albino bell peppers. And these are one of my favorite plants in the garden this year. I just think they're gorgeous. They're growing nice and evenly. They're not leggy at all. Now the one over here, I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know if it has a deficiency or what, but I'm just gonna let it grow and learn from it, and we'll see what happens there. He's kind of funky looking. Some of his leaves are curly. Then I have another purple basil, another purple basil, and then my nasturtiums are doing really good. Just love those. Aren't they pretty? All the different tones of green, variegations. This one's getting really nice and full. There's a lot of new growth on the inside as well. And then the Alaskan salmon variety. It's small, but you can see just how much new growth it's putting off this week. So I'm very excited for that. So we have this one's going to be a really pretty peachy salmon color. And this one is an unknown color. And I don't think it's a dwarf. I think it's going to be bigger. We'll see. But I can't wait to see what color flowers he gives us. So we're going to have sunflower, 2 more flowers, jalapenos, bell peppers with the basil, jalapenos, eggplant, and more basil. And I did get from one of my coworkers, actually my boss, she gave me some compost tea today, and so I went ahead and poured that at the roots of all of the plants in my garden just to give them a little bit of an extra boost. I can't wait to see how that helps them grow. And then in the corner next to my pretty scarecrow, I have a little friend, and his name is Okra. And I was a little worried about, because when I transplanted him, he didn't grow at all for the longest time. And I think he was just a little stressed out from being transplanted. But you can look closer, and he's grown probably at least an inch or 2 since we last looked at him. He has lots of new growth. He's doing good. And these like a lot of heat, so I expect him to really take off here in the next few weeks as we get hotter. I gave him some butterflies for moral support. There you go, buddy. Protect you from the birds, so you don't have a lot to give to those birds. And this is cool. I don't really like using tomato cages because they're just not very strong, and they don't think very long term for the indeterminate tomato. But I had a tomato cage, so I went ahead and covered him in some bird netting, and he has a useful purpose. guarding my little okra. Let me get out of here without stepping on anybody. So my Jardel pumpkin is looking very big. He's getting nice and full. Then I have my 2 acorn squash, which are also getting lots of new growth. And my 2 butternut. I think these look really cool. They look a little different than like the acorn squash, butternut squash. You can see, remember last week I showed you how this one had a little bite taken out of it? Well, he doesn't look like he's had any more bug damage, and he's putting off several new leaves. I counted yesterday, and this one has put off 6 new leaves since last week. And so they're not quite big enough to start reaching up toward this cattle panel. And remember guys, I know these are gonna spread out a lot, but my plan is to grow them up. And I just hope, this was a shade cloth while I was hardening them off. I just hope that this is gonna be enough room for them, but we'll see. And then my little cantaloupe is doing really good. Has some pretty light green flowers. He's putting off, or flowers. I keep saying flowers. I really want to see some flowers this year. He's putting off some bright green leaves, and even a new leaf is starting to develop there. And that new leaf wasn't there yesterday. And just in the past 2 days, I've seen a lot of growth in him. So I'm hopeful that he's gonna catch up to these other guys. He did have about a 3 or 4 week slow start because these started in the greenhouse, and I just direct sowed him about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. So that is the main garden. Can't believe that my garden beds are in. I remember back in December when I was sitting with my seed packets studying, trying to learn as much as I could, and I just couldn't even imagine. We still had to build the raised garden beds. We didn't build the fence yet. We had so much to do, and I just couldn't wait for this moment. Now look how far we've come. So we're running out of time. Let's look quickly at what else we got. This is that cucamelon I planted last week. He's probably grown another 6 inches since I planted him. He's grabbing on really nicely in several spots. I can see him definitely growing up this tree this year, which is going to be pretty. And then in the front, I have a messy yard, but I also have some carrots, which aren't doing too much, but they're there. I'm growing a little mushroom who I didn't know was there until the other day. This is where I planted my last cucamelon. He's doing good. I plan on growing him up this, and once he gets away from the chicken height, he's gonna have this whole fence to grow on. Lots of cucamelons. And this is my other Jardel pumpkin. He was so droopy today at lunchtime, and I watered him. Came back about 20 minutes later, and he was very happy and healthy. So he just needed a little drink of water. It was pretty hot. It was probably 85 at lunchtime today. He's happy the sun's off of him. Then the greenhouse, it's not as full as it used to be. I've given a lot of stuff away, planted a lot of stuff, and I still have more to plant. Those are my last 2 Blue Beauty tomatoes. And then I have my very happy dwarf sunflowers on this pot. My French breakfast radishes, which are doing good. They probably have another 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I'm gonna harvest those and give a lot to the chickens. I'm gonna give all the greens to the chickens, and then we're probably going to keep the radishes for salads and soups and roasting. So we still have this mystery plant. I know what it is. Have you guessed yet? Can't wait for you to find out. And then I have several green beans. Last week I was in an issue of having roly-polies eating on them. This week the roly-polies have stopped. So I'm happy that I have at least 3/4 of this trellis to grow purple potted pole beans and a few Kentucky green beans on. But what they did was kill all of the beans right here. So I think I'm going to plant another squash here and just let it take over this whole area. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching week 2. Come back next week to see just how much these guys have grown. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Good night.